December 8th, 1997, right off the In Your House, the Generation X pay-per-view. And Mike, we had this debate a couple of weeks ago on episode number 1. We had this conversation with Brian Alvarez last week as well about when the Attitude Era actually started. I think we might have jumped the gun, my friend. I think this week's episode of Raw is actually the episode where I think we could say the Attitude Era was in full effect. We're going to break all this down, but just a little bit of peek behind the curtain. We get the essentially the debut of Mr. McMahon. We get Sable in a bikini. We get Rock versus Austin. And this is kind of the tail end of Shawn Michaels' career, which is kind of ushering in the Austin era and starting the actual Attitude Era, in my opinion. This is such a good episode. We're obviously going to give our grades at the end of it. This is going to be my highest grade so far.
Same. Yeah, it was a lot history that happened in this episode, that at least where you see through the video package and stuff that we see today. Yeah, full steam ahead. Sable, DX, Austin, Mr. McMahon. It's a good show.
Yeah, and we I don't know how you felt about this. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. Brian kind of alluded to it in the last episode, but I absolutely loathed/loved when they recapped pay-per-views and there was just still images. They wouldn't give you the videos. And as obviously during this time I was 9 years old, and I hated it because my parents couldn't afford pay-per-views. Yeah. I got to find out what happened at the pay-per-view on Monday nights. But what they did worked, and because not showing the video made me, even though I wasn't going to, but made me want to purchase those replays. Obviously, back in the 90s, you had the pay-per-views, and you could only buy them on replays. You couldn't buy them live if you missed the planned portion of it. And I like in hindsight, this is a great business decision by the Fed.
Yeah, it threw me back because I remember that too, the still images, but you still hear the announcers and even the action in the ring, even though it's a still.
You'd hear the mat pop, all that.
Yes, and like the only way, and it took a long time. But the only way I could anyways, again, I couldn't afford pay-per-view and my parents wouldn't buy it, but Blockbuster, you had to rent them from Blockbuster.
Man, I can't even tell you how many times we rented WrestleMania 6, Hogan versus Warrior. I mean, we probably kept Blockbuster in business, just me renting that video out every other week.
Yeah.
We talked about the start and a lot of firsts. The announced team to start the first episode, or the first hour, of Raw, is Kevin Kelly, Jim Ross, and for the first time in his career on commentary, Michael Cole at the booth. So a very cool moment there. Obviously goes on to be the voice of the WWE, but this is his very first episode actually sitting at the commentator's desk. And we open the show with Vince McMahon walking down to the ring, and he's referred to as the owner, the chairman of the board of the WWF. He walks to the ring shaking people's hands in the front row, and obviously the people closest to Vince, very happy to see him, very happy to shake his hand. He's getting booed throughout the arena, though, and you could see the realization that he's kind of going, okay, well, I'm not the babyface I thought I was going to be after Montreal, but we might have something here. And you could see the wheels turning in his head as the chairman of the board enters the ring.
Yes, comes to the ring like that crooked politician.
Yeah,
shaking hands.
Sure.
Thank God they're not
kissing
in Canada.
Babies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, they weren't in Canada. It wasn't a very warm reception anyway, though.
No, and it was loud boos, and it was actually kind of fitting that he came out to No Music. We're still a little over a year away from No Chance in Hell.
Yeah.
But it gets in the ring.
Almost exactly a year with the Royal Rumble.
Yep. And it, I don't know. You could just look at him and know you hate this guy, especially with the Montreal stuff.
Which is crazy because, like, in the early 90s, like, he was the voice of the WWF. He was the lead commentator, and it was a very beloved figure, really, pre-Jim Ross.
What a maneuver.
He beat me to it. But Vince grabs the mic, and in the course of boos, he says, there's no denying the popularity of Stone Cold Steve Austin. And the place goes nuts. This is a sold-out arena. They had people standing in line outside for this Raw, watching on keep in mind, this is 1997, not great quality picture, Jumbotron outside the arena watching this. But he says that Austin has been getting away with murder, which gets an even louder cheer, by the way. And we kind of get the catalyst for why Stone Cold Steve Austin's truck has been such a focal point of this story, right? But Vince talks about he's attacked Jim Ross, he's attacked Commissioner Slaughter, he's attacked referees, and he's attacked myself, Vince McMahon, and the place goes nuts.
Yeah.
But he said that Austin went too far last night at In Your House, endangering the fans by driving his truck into the arena, which is really ironic in hindsight after what happened at WrestleMania this year with his ATV accident. And Vince McMahon, not going to get a lot of sympathy for me. He may have been onto something here back in 1997.
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on the crowd reaction, this was, I think, the first time I saw 316 painted on people's bodies.
Oh, and the like this, and that was the other thing I meant to mention earlier when I was talking about the start of the Attitude Era. This was the first Raw where you can barely see people through the signs.
Right.
There's so many signs at these events. And this is before the day and age of them handing out signs and taking signs away. This is as authentic as it gets as well. But Vince says that Stone Cold Steve Austin last night stunned an official, and that official, and they show the replay, was getting ready to call for the bell so that he's going to have to redefend his title against The Rock again tonight. Probably thing that doesn't make sense about that, though, is if the official would have disqualified Austin, he still would be the champion tonight. It's a little bit of a lapse in logic there.
Yeah. They get to it, though, where they need to go by the end of the show. But, yeah, kind of, I don't know, just doesn't really make sense on that aspect. However, like I said, and we'll get to it at the end, they know what they're getting at. And it's to me, I know this is the second time they've been in the ring together, but Stone Cold and Vince.
What's the third? Vince was in the ring when he stunned Slaughter.
Oh, that's right. But they're back and forth, and we are seeing the start of a beautiful frenemy friendship.
Well, here comes the glass shatters, and out comes Stone Cold Steve Austin to an absolutely ruckus ovation. Austin comes down, and we talk about being defiant in this era and what really the Stone Cold Steve Austin character was. This promo may encompass all of that. Throwing the belt into the ring, already showing his complete disregard for the Intercontinental Championship to set up what happens later, not giving any regard for the title or authority. And I really think that they did, like, the reason Austin McMahon worked so well is they did such a good job telling the story. I loved how Vince acted like he was going to get out of the ring and not even entertain the idea of talking to Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then comes back in to kind of show, no, I'm in charge here. I am the authority figure. Let's start planting those seeds.
Yeah, and he did it very well. His character, there's not a lot of redeeming qualities you can say about Vince McMahon, and even with the character, there's not a whole lot of redeeming qualities, but it is pure entertainment, and he's just trying to stand up to that kid in school that is defiant. It doesn't really work out. He tries, but
yeah. Well, Jim Cornette says it all the time. The reason that the Mr. McMahon character worked is because that's Vince. Yes. That's who he is in real life. So, yes. But Austin, not missing a beat, comes out and says he doesn't answer to anyone or anything, and he doesn't really give a damn who Vince McMahon is. And Vince says, well, quite frankly, I'm your boss. And Austin goes, quite frankly, I don't give a damn.
Yes.
And Vince tells him that, you're going to have to defend the championship tonight. And Austin says, well, I'm going to go back and have a couple hot dogs and a couple Steve Weisers and think about it. And the crowd goes nuts because apparently we love beer and hot dogs in America. But if he comes back out, someone is going to get their ass whooping. It may be Jim Ross. It may be the official wearing the striped shirt, or hell, it may be Vince McMahon. And let me rephrase that. Austin said, it could be your sorry ass, and points right at Vince.
Yes.
But it just sets up like, hey, we're getting our ass kicked by Nitro. We need to get back in this race. This is the best horse we got. We need to let people know. Stick around for the next 2 hours because this guy's coming back out.